Go.
Okay, and hello everybody, this is Miss Jody again, and I'm going to tell you another very interesting story about Winnie the Pooh. Now we know that he and Christopher Robin have a lot of adventures, and so this one is called an expedition because they didn't know how to pronounce expedition. It's to the North Pole, and so we're in the 100-acre woods, which is where all the animals and of course there are rabbits, and then there was Roo was there, and Pooh's house, and then there's a story about the 6 pine trees and Piglet's house. But this is the 100-acre wood, and there is a stream that goes through it. And here's Christopher Robin over here with an owl and eel. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And you know, Christopher Robin had a lot of it. He was a little boy who had a lot of adventures, and his daddy wrote the stories called A.A. Milne, and his little boy was named Christopher Robin. That's who they were all about. Okay, so here's Christopher Robin, and here's Winnie the Pooh, and they are going to start out, but we have a lot of the other adventures. Here we go. So there, sit here. Christopher Robin's going to tell us the story. Okay. It's an expedition, which is really supposed to be an expedition, but they couldn't pronounce it very well. Okay, one fine day, Pooh had stumped up to the top of the forest to see his friend Christopher Robin. So up to the top. I don't know where. There's Christopher Robin's house. It's over there. Okay. Christopher Robin was interested in bears at all. At breakfast that morning, a simple meal of marmalade spread lightly over honeycomb. He had suddenly thought, this is Winnie singing, and he thought of a new song, and it began like this: Hi-ho for the life of a bear. When he got as far as this, he scratched his head and thought to himself, that's a very good start for a song, he thought, but he couldn't think of the next line. He tried singing ho, ho, ho a few times, but it didn't seem to help. Perhaps it would be better, he thought, if I just sang hi for the life of a bear several times. Very well, I shall sing the first line twice, and perhaps if I sing it very quickly, I'll think of the rest of the song. So he said, sing ho for the life of a bear, sing ho for the life of a bear. I don't much mind if it rains or snows, because I've got a lot of honey on my nice new nose. I didn't much care for it snows or thaws, because I have a lot of honey on my nice clean paws. So sing hi for a bear, sing ho for a bear. And there I'll have something other in a little hour or two. He was so pleased with that song that he sang it all the way to the top of the forest. If I go singing it much longer, he thought, it will be time for a little something. He always said a little something, because Winnie the Pooh always needed something to eat. So then at last, here, the line going true, so he turned it to a hum and said, Christopher Robin was sitting outside his door, putting on his big boots. Oh, here, turn around so you can see the story. Okay. Put on his boots. And as soon as he saw the big boots, Pooh knew that he had an adventure in mind. What was going to happen? He brushed the honey off his nose, because Pooh was eating something. And the back of his paws, he went like this. And spruced himself up as well as he could, looked ready for anything. Good morning, Christopher Robin, he called out. Well, hello, Pooh Bear. I can't get this boot on. So Pooh helped him, and he held him, and they went back to back as he could pull on his boot. You think very kindly against me. And so Pooh sat down, dug his feet in the ground, and pushed hard against Christopher Robin's back. Christopher Robin pushed hard and pulled until finally he got the boot on. Oh, that's that. What do we do next? Well, said Christopher Robin, we're going on expedition. So, thank you, Pooh. I don't think I've ever been on one of those. Where are we going on this expedition? Expedition, silly old bear. It's got an X in it. Oh, said Pooh, I know, but he didn't really. We're going to discover the North Pole. Oh, Pooh said, what is the North Pole? It's just something you discover, said Christopher Robin, not being quite sure himself. Oh, I see, said Pooh. Are bears any good at discovering it? Of course they are. And Rabbit and Kanga and all of you is an expedition. That's what an expedition means. A long line of everybody. You better tell the others to get ready while I see if my gun's all ready. We might as well take on provisions. Bring what? Said Pooh. Things to eat. Oh, said Pooh happily. I thought you said provisions. I'll go and tell them. And he stumped off. So he went off to get the rest. And first he met was Rabbit. Now if I get up, you can see. So he found Rabbit. So here's Rabbit. There's Rabbit. So we got Rabbit. Hello, Rabbit. Is that you? Let's pretend it isn't, said Rabbit, because Rabbit, look how cranky he looks. Doesn't he look sort of cranky? That's Rabbit. Let's pretend it isn't. I've got a message for you. I'll give it to you. We're all going on an expedition, said Christopher Robin. What is it? When we're on it? A sort of a boat, I think, said Pooh. Oh, that sort. Well, we're going to go discover a pole or something, or whatever is a mole. Anyway, we're going to discover it. We are we, said Rabbit. Yes, we're going to get this. Things to eat. We need things to eat. Then I'm going to go down to Piglet's house and tell Kanga. So here's Piglet. So Piglet is also going to go on this expedition. Okay. And then he had to find Kanga. Now, I only have a tiny Kanga. But you remember, this is Kanga, and in her pouch is Pooh. This is Kanga and Roo. So they went on the expedition also. And we're going to bring provisions. So we got Kanga, now we go. He left Rabbit and hurried down to Piglet's house. And Piglet was sitting on the ground of his house, blowing happily on a dandelion. Now Piglet is a very sweet little thing. And he likes dandelions, so he would blow the flowers. Okay. He was wondering what next year, because maybe the dandelions would grow. He just discovered that it would be never, trying to remember what it was, and hoping when Pooh came up. Oh, Piglet, said Pooh excitedly. We're going on an expedition, all of us, with things to eat, to discover something. To discover what, said Piglet. Oh, just something. Nothing fierce, said Piglet. Piglet was kind of scared, so he didn't want to make sure there was nothing scary. Christopher Robin didn't say anything about fierce. He just said it had an X. Isn't that their necks? I mean, is that their teeth? But Christopher Robin said it's coming. I don't mind anything. In a little while, they're all ready to go to the top of the forest. Now, there was the top of the forest. Here. We're going to the top of the forest. Christopher Robin, and then Rabbit, and Piglet, and Pooh. And then Kanga, and Roo in her pocket, and Owl. Well, here's the Owl. And here's Owl. He's going to go on this expedition. Then Eeyore. Everybody. Here's Eeyore. Now we know how sad Eeyore is. Eeyore always gets a little bit of sad. Eeyore. Okay. Eeyore. And at the end of the long ride were Rabbit and his friends. Now Rabbit had lots of friends. I didn't ask him, asked Rabbit. They just came. They always show up. Let's see. They always, oh, here we go. They can march at the end after Eeyore. What I say, Eeyore, is that it's unsettling. I don't want to come to this expo, what Pooh said. I only came to oblige. But here I am, and if I'm at the end of the expo, what are we talking about? But if every time I want to sit down for a little rest, I have to brush away half a dozen of Rabbit's family. Whatever it is and where we're going is simply a confused note. That's what I said. This is all poor Eeyore. He was always confused. Okay. I see what Eeyore means, said Owl. If you ask me, I'm not asking anybody, said Eeyore. I'm just telling you. We can look for the North Pole, or we can play Here We Go Gathering Nuts in May. Or at the end of the ant's nest. It's all the same to me. There was a shout from the top of the line. Come on, said Christopher Robin. Now we're back to Christopher Robin. Come on, said Pooh and Piglet. Come on, said Owl. We're starting, said Rabbit. I must go. Then he hurried off to get all of his family. All right, said Eeyore, we're going. only don't blame me. So off they went to discover the pole. And they walked and walked and walked, and they chattered to each other with this and that. And Pooh was making up a song. This is the first verse, he said. Piglet was ready for him. What verse of what? My song, said Pooh. Which one? Which one? Well, if you don't listen, Piglet, you'll never know. How do you know I'm not listening? Pooh couldn't answer that one, so he began to sing. They all went off to discover the pole, Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. It's a thing you discover, as I've been told, by Owl and Piglet and Rabbit and all. Eeyore, Christopher Robin, and Pooh, and Rabbit's relations all went too. And where the pole, but none of them knew, sing hey for Owl and Rabbit and all. Hush, said Christopher Robin, turning around to Pooh. We're coming to a dangerous place. Hush, said Pooh, turned quickly to Piglet. Hush, said Piglet to Kanga. Hush, said Kanga to Owl, while Roo said hush several times to himself. Okay. I gotta turn the page here. You wait a second. There we go. There we go. Okay. Hush, said Owl to Eeyore. Hush, said Eeyore in a terrible voice to all of Rabbit's friends. Hush, they all said quickly, and they all down the line until they said, shh. The last and the smallest one was so upset to find the whole expedition was saying hush that he buried his head. That was the bunny. Okay. His name was, and that was, at the end was a beetle. That was Alexander Beetle. I don't even have a beetle, but you know them. They had come to a stream which twisted and tumbled between high rocks, and Christopher Robin saw at once how dangerous it was. It's just the place, he explained, for an ambush. What sort of a bush? Said Pooh. A gorse bush? My dear Pooh, said Owl. It is very superior way, because Owl is very smart. Don't you know what an ambush is? Owl, said Piglet, looking around. Pooh's whisper was a perfectly private whisper, and there's no need. An ambush, said Owl, is a sort of a surprise. So is a gorse bush sometimes? An ambush is what I was going to explain to Pooh, said Piglet, in a sort of surprise. If people jump out at you suddenly, that's an ambush. It's an ambush, Pooh, when people jump out suddenly. Pooh, who now knew what an ambush was, said that it was a gorse bush with something spring out suddenly one day when he fell off a tree, and he had taken 6 days to get all those prickles out of himself. We're not talking about gorse bushes. I am, said Pooh. They were climbing very cautiously up the stream now, going from rock to rock, and after they had gone a little way, they came to a place where the banks widened out on each side, so that on each side was water. It was a level strip of grass where they could sit down and rest. As soon as he saw this, Christopher Robin said, okay, he said, hush, halt, and they all sat down and rested. I think, said Christopher Robin, that we ought to eat all of our provisions now. Now they brought a sort of a picnic. You know when you go on a picnic, you take a little bit of it, he called them provisions. We ought to eat our provisions now, so we won't have so much to carry. Eat all our what? Said Pooh. All that we brought, said Piglet, going to work. That's a good idea, said Pooh, because he always wanted something to eat. Have you all got something? Asked Christopher Robin with his mouth full. All except me, said Eeyore, as usual. He looked around at them in his melancholy way. I suppose none of you are sitting on a thistle by any chance. That's when Pooh said, I believe I am. And sure enough, Pooh sat down on the thistle bush, and all the thistles were in his bottle. So, thank you, Pooh. If you're quite finished with it, I will begin to eat. It doesn't do them any good, sitting on them, said Eeyore. Okay. Take all the life out of them. Remember that time when little consideration and the thought for others makes all the difference? As soon as they had finished their lunch, Christopher Robin whispered to Rabbit, and Rabbit said, yes, of course. And they walked a little way up the stream together. I don't want the others to hear, said Christopher Robin. Quite so, said Rabbit, looking very important. I wondered, it's only, Rabbit, I suppose you don't know. What does the North Pole look like? Well, Rabbit said, stroking his whiskers, now you're asking me. I did know once, but I sort of forgotten, said Christopher Robin carelessly. It's a funny thing, said Rabbit, but I've also forgotten too, although I did know once. I suppose it's just a pole stuck in the ground. Sure, it's got to be a pole, said Rabbit, because if you're calling it a pole, then it's a pole. Well, I think it would be very sticking in the ground, wouldn't you? Because there was nowhere else to stick it. That's what I thought, said Christopher Robin. The only thing, said Robert, is where is it sticking? That's what we're looking for, said Christopher Robin. They went back to the others. Piglet was lying on his back, sleeping peacefully. Roo was washing his face and paws in the stream, while Kanga explained to everybody proudly this was the first time he had ever washed his face by himself. Now where's my... Oh, here he is. Okay. See, he's just a baby. And so he was washing his face in the stream. Now, I can't take him out of the pouch, but you know what the kangaroo. Okay. They went back to the others, and Kanga explained to everybody that was the first time he washed his own face. Okay, they were always telling Kanga an interesting anecdote full of big words like encyclopedia and rhododendron, to which Kanga wasn't listening. I don't hold with all this watching, grumbled Eeyore, this modern behind-the-ears nonsense. What do you think, Pooh? Well, said Pooh, I think. But we shall never know what Pooh thought, because there came a sudden squeak from Roo, a splash, and Pooh fell in the ground. Not Pooh. Here, Kanga and Roo fell in the little lake, and poor Kanga couldn't find him. Okay, so much for washing. Roo's fallen in, said Rabbit, and Christopher Robin came rushing down to help. Look at me swimming, said Roo from the middle of the pool. He was hurrying down past the waterfall. Are you all right, Roo dear? Called Kanga anxiously. Yes, said Roo, look at me. And with that, he swept over the waterfall into another pool. Everyone was doing something to help Piglet. Wide awake suddenly, he was jumping up and down, saying, oh, I say, Owl was explaining that in case of a sudden and temporary immersion, the important thing was to keep the head above water. Kanga was jumping along. Are you sure you're all right, baby Roo? To which Roo, from whatever pool he was in, look at me, I'm swimming. Eeyore had turned around and hung his tail. Now here's Eeyore, and he hung his tail in the river, hoping that Roo could catch onto his tail. Okay. Eeyore, his tail. Roo fell and went into the next pond. All this washing, you can't catch on my tail, you'll be all right. Eeyore and Robin and Christopher Robin were all calling out to each other. All right, Roo, I'm coming, called Christopher Robin. Get something from across the stream lower down, you fellows, called Rabbit. But Pooh was getting something. 2 pools below Roo, he was standing with a long pole. Now, I'm going to get the pole, because here's the pole they found. Now, this is just a flagpole, but they said that's the pole. They were very confused, because we all know what the North Pole is. But Pooh's getting something. So he found the pool, and he put the pole across the pool. And Roo was bubbling proudly. Look at me, I'm swimming. Do you see me swimming, squeaked Roo, while Kanga scolded him and rubbed him down. Pooh, did you see any swimming? That's called swimming, what I was doing, Rabbit. Did you see what I was doing? So Roo was all excited. What do you think I'm doing? Swimming. But Christopher Robin wasn't listening. He was looking at Pooh. Pooh, he said, where did you find that pole? Pooh looked at the pole in his hands. I just found it, he said. I thought it might be useful. I just picked it up. So here's the pole that Pooh found. Okay. Pooh, said Christopher Robin solemnly, the expedition is over. You have found the North Pole. Oh, said Pooh. Eeyore was sitting with his tail in the water while they all came back to him. Tell Roo to be quick, somebody. My tail is getting cold. Because here's poor Eeyore with his tail hanging in the river, and his tail was getting cold. said, my tail is cold. Here I am, squeaked Roo. Oh, there you are. Did you see me swimming, said Roo. Eeyore took his tail out of the water and swished it from side to side. I expected, he said, lost all feeling, numbed it. That's what it's done, numbed it. Well, at least as long as nobody minds, I suppose it's all right. Poor old Eeyore, I'll dry it off for you, said Christopher Robin, and he took out his handkerchief and rubbed it down. Thank you, Christopher Robin. You're the only one who seems to understand about tails. I don't think they understood what happened. The matter with some of the others, but they have no imagination. A tail is a tail to them. It's just a little bit of extra at the back. Never mind, Eeyore, said Christopher Robin, rubbing his hardest. Is that better? It's feeling more like a tail. It belongs again, if you know what I mean. Hello, Eeyore, said Pooh, coming up from with the pole. See, he was still carrying the pole. Hello, Pooh. Thank you for asking, but I shall be able to use my tail in a day or two. Use what? What we were talking about, said Eeyore. Pooh looked puzzled. He didn't get that. My mistake again. I thought you were saying how sorry you were about my tail being all numb. No, said Pooh, it wasn't me. He thought for a little bit and then suggested, hopefully, perhaps it was somebody else. Well, thank him for thanking you when you see him. Pooh looked anxiously at Christopher Robin. Pooh found the North Pole, said Christopher Robin. Isn't that lovely? Pooh looked modestly down. Is that it? Said Eeyore. Yes, said Christopher Robin. Is that what we're looking for? Yes, said Pooh. Oh, said Eeyore. Well, anyhow, it didn't rain. They stuck the pole in the ground, and Christopher Robin tied a message on it. Now, I'm going to take a quick second to put the message on. So here's the message. Whoa, Christopher Robin fell on the floor. Okay, so here's the sign that they made, and it says, North Pole discovered by Pooh. Pooh found it. They all went home again, and I think, and I'm not quite sure, that Roo, oh, let's see what Roo did. Where did we go to Roo? Come on, turn the page. There we go. Roo had a hot bath and went straight to bed. But Pooh went back to his own house, and feeling very proud of himself and what he had done, he had a little something to eat. So that was the expedition that all of the people went, all of our little characters who live in the 100-acre wood went on an adventure with Christopher Robin and Pooh. Thank you for coming, and we'll try you another story.